Okay, so let's just take a look at this now. And where did my screen go? There we go. Okay, so today we are talking about how to become a morning person. So, what we are primarily going to cover are going to be some simple, realistic strategies to wake up earlier with energy and clarity, and to help build mornings that support your goals and your well being. So, a little bit about me. I'm a certified health coach. I went through the Institute of Integrative Nutrition program and graduated from that program in 2015. I am an essential oils educator. Been doing that for about 2000 since about 2011. I am a podcaster. My podcast is called Autoimmune Rehab, where I focus about helping people to heal and recover from their autoimmune disorders. And I'm an early morning riser. I get up at about 5:30 a.m. in the morning pretty consistently. Set my alarm for 5:30 typically Monday through Friday, and then on the weekends I don't turn on my alarm, but a lot of times I end up still waking up about then anyway. And a lot of people are really surprised by that. They're like, "Oh my gosh, you get up so early." And yes, I do get up pretty early. I mean 5:30 is considered early by a lot of standards, but the reality is I really believe that the statement that Ben Franklin came out with, early to bed, early to rise makes a man healthy, wealthy, and wise, is really actually true. And that the earlier that you're, well, not necessarily the earlier you're able to get up, but by getting up early, you are able to accomplish a lot of things through a high quality, a good, healthy morning routine that sets the start for your day. Whereas, if you have to, like a lot of people, you have to be at work if you're commuting to an office, or if you work from home, whatever the case may be. I work from home, so I don't have a commute, but you either, have to start that workday by about 8 a.m. If you are, just kind of whatever, and you don't lounge around in bed till 7:30 a.m., you're not going to have much of, if any, kind of a quality morning routine. And I feel like that just makes for you to be rushed and hurried, and it just doesn't really help and benefit you long term. So, yes, I get up at 5:30 in the morning. And so let's start a little bit about why becoming a morning person, or why should you become a morning person. So I kind of already mentioned this a little bit: more quiet and focused time, improved productivity, better consistency with your health habits, and less rushed and more intentional delays. So, especially when it comes to things like, let's go back to better consistency with health habits, one of the things that I do when I get up at 5:30 in the morning is I arrive at the gym by about 6 to 6:15 on about 2 or 3 of those days of the week, and I go swimming for 45 minutes. And this has really helped with my overall health and well-being. And on the mornings that I don't go swimming, I usually go out walking or do some other kind of stretching or weightlifting or other kind of exercise. And could I exercise at another time? Sure. I could sleep in till 7 a.m. and then exercise at, 6 p.m. But the reality is that after a nice, long, hard day of work and doing all these other things, it's a lot harder for me to focus on and concentrate on doing the exercise if I don't do it first thing. And I feel like for the sake of my health and well-being, exercising first thing is really, really helps with my energy levels and all that kind of thing. So I'm a big fan of it. I also feel like there's a lot of things, whether it has to do with prayer, meditation, journaling, reading scriptures or other inspirational reading, different things like that, that those things really should be done for at least a few minutes in the morning. You can do them at night before bed as well, and you really don't have the time if you sleep in and are just whatever. And I have also noticed that the other advantage to getting up early and having a high quality morning routine is that I'm not rushed around, and I'm not risking showing up late to work or late to meetings. And back in the day when I used to work in an office, I would, if I were to sleep in occasionally, it would just throw everything off. I'd run out of time to prepare lunch, and then I'd go spend money I didn't want to spend on unhealthy food, and just it's like rush, 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 rush. So these are a lot of the reasons why I feel like becoming a morning person can really enhance your life. So, how exactly do you become a morning person? So, the first thing is to fix your night first. Because the reality is that if you don't also have a nighttime and an evening routine, then you very more likely won't have a morning routine either. So the first one is to set a consistent bedtime. And this is really, really important because if you are staying up till very late hours of the evening, or if you are just kind of, oh, last night I went to bed at 11 p.m., the night before it was midnight, then the other night it was 10, and all this other stuff, it's going to really affect your ability to be an early riser on a regular basis. So the first thing is to reduce your screen time 60 minutes before bed. And this can really, really help enhance your sleep quality and make sure that you sleep well at night. Also, dim your lights in the evening. Try to have a room that's as dark as possible for good sleep, and create a calming wind down routine. And that routine can include things like maybe even like chamomile tea can be a good thing, using some lavender essential oil, spritzing on the pillow, uh, listening to some calming music, doing some meditation right before you fall asleep. All these different things can help to create an evening routine. Then step two is to adjust gradually. So if you are coming at this as somebody who has been in the habit of only getting up, let's say you get up normally for you is 30 minutes before you have to be out the door to work, or if you work from home 30 minutes before you have to start working, then you aren't going to be able to just go from waking up at 7:30 to waking up at 5:30 like me. It's just not going to happen. So what you want to do is make gradual adjustments to help you get there. So for the first week, you want to start by getting that 15 to 20 minutes earlier. So for the first week, let's say for example purposes, let's say that you've been getting up at 7:30, but you know you need to start getting up by about 6. Let the first week you get up at 7:15 every morning. And then the second week you get up at 7 a.m. The third week you get up at 6:45. The fourth week you get up at 6:30. The fifth week you get up at 6:15. The sixth week you're up by 6 weeks you're up at 6. And so you just kind of avoid those drastic schedule changes and try to be consistent even on weekends. So like I mentioned, my body just kind of naturally typically wakes up around, it isn't always 5:30. Sometimes I will sleep in ish to around 6. Maybe once in a while, if my body just for some reason really, really needs a lot of sleep, I might not get up to around 7 on the weekends. And one of the reasons on the weekends that I don't set my alarm to get up that early is because, well, I don't have to go to, or start working or anything by 8. And I feel like on the weekends, if my body just naturally needs a little bit more sleep in the morning, that's okay. So I don't set the alarm on the weekends, but like I said, I more or less am up around that time usually anyway. And, trying to tell yourself that if you've been getting up at 7:30, you're all of a sudden going to start getting up at 6 every morning all at once. It's just a recipe for a disaster. So that's why you want to implement gradual baby steps to help you succeed. Then step three is to create a compelling reason. So why do you actually want to wake up earlier? And how is that going to impact your life if you go from getting up at 7:30 to getting up at 6? What are you going to actually do with that time? And tie it to an actual meaningful goal. So for me, like I mentioned before, it goes back to going to the gym and swimming and working out and everything else. My meaningful goal is that I want to feel healthier. I want to, to get and maintain a healthy weight. I want to have more energy. And all of these things really require me to do some kind of exercise, and the morning is the best time for me to do it. And make morning something you look forward to. So, in other words, create some reasons and lists of things that you're going to do in the morning as part of a morning routine and include on it some things that you really look forward to and things you enjoy doing, because then you will be more likely to get up out of bed early. Step four, design a simple morning routine. So I've touched on this a little bit already, but you want to think about some of these things. So hydrate immediately, so make sure you get that water, because the reality is that drinking water is really, really good for your health, and you just want to, get that water in. And get natural light within 10 minutes. So, ideally, you're going to get it from outside, but the reality is, depending on where you are in the world, a lot of times especially this time of year, it's still dark outside. At least here where I'm at in Utah, it's dark probably almost right up until I start working. So, getting that natural light is a little bit tough. Not almost impossible. I pretty much have to get artificial light, which is the regular indoor lighting, but you get the idea. And move your body gently. So, you want to get out of bed and immediately start doing some kind of gentle stretches. If you've ever paid attention to dogs, for example, like I actually have a dog, so I've noticed this. As soon as she gets out of bed in the morning or she gets off the couch after she's been sitting for a while, she immediately starts stretching. And we need to follow the example of our canine friends, and we need to start doing that too, because the reality is that you can get really tense and have all kinds of pains and aches and other things from not doing the stretching and moving. And avoid checking your phone first thing. This I know has been a big thing for me. I personally have set the goal that I try to not check my phone for at least the first 20 or 30 minutes, and I do not log on to social media until maybe right before work if I happen to have time, or then, after later. So I just will not find me on social media in the morning, let's put it that way. Okay, and then support your energy naturally. So this is important too, to think about what are you consuming at breakfast time to help you with having a good, successful morning. So the first thing is prioritizing protein. So, that can be things like eggs and or meats, bacon, ham, potentially other kinds of protein heavy dishes, things like that, but you protein shakes, stuff like that. But you want to also strive to balance your blood sugar to limit really late caffeine. So this is another thing that can really affect your morning routine and your sleep, is if you're drinking or consuming anything with caffeine after 5 p.m. So you really want to make sure that you're not doing that, and get daily sunlight exposure. So, like I mentioned before, if the sun isn't there when you first get up, make sure that you go outside when the sun is there and do your best. I mean, obviously, depending on where you live, in some cases you may go through phases where, there literally isn't any sunlight and you kind of don't have a choice. But as long as you at least have access to the sunlight, make sure that you are going outside and getting that sunlight. And a couple of common mistakes to avoid when you're attempting to make mornings a priority and get up early is to avoid going to bed too late. Because the reality is, if you don't go to bed till midnight or whatever, or even later, you obviously can't get up at 5:30 a.m. So personally, what I do is I'm in bed between about 9:30 and 10, and then that gives me a good 7 to 7.5 hours of sleep before I get up at 5:30 the next morning. And you also want to avoid hitting snooze repeatedly. So if you're constantly hitting the snooze button, this is another sign that for some reason you've got some problems, some challenges. Maybe you're trying to get up too early for your body at the moment, or you're not motivated enough, that kind of thing. And then you also want to avoid relying on motivation instead of systems. So, there is some motivation that needs to happen, but you also need to have some systems and routines in place to get out of bed, and expecting instant results. So, you want to make sure that you don't expect to, like goes back to the whole, not taking giant leaps, of not expecting to be able to go from sleeping until 7:30 every morning to getting up at 5. And if you struggle with fatigue, can be a common problem in the morning, especially those of us who have autoimmune conditions, which is what a lot of my target audience is to evaluate your sleep quality. So what kind of sleep quality are you getting? And if you're not sure, you can use something like currently I use an Oura ring, which I really, really love. It's like a tracker for sleep and health and has all kinds of different things that you can track. But try to figure out a way to evaluate the quality of the sleep that you're getting and check your stress levels. Are you having just too much stress and you just can't fall asleep well at night? And work on supporting your nervous system regulation and consider underlying health issues. Because the reality is that the morning time should not be the time when you have a lot of fatigue. If you start feeling tired and fatigue, it should be, after lunch and kind of a little bit of that afternoon slump or, at night, maybe later in the day. But you really shouldn't be tired during those first few hours in the morning. And if you are, then you need to, figure out what the solution to that is. Okay, so a couple of final thoughts is that becoming a morning person is an actual skill. And I do actually believe that everybody can become a morning person. I believe everybody should be a morning person. I know some people say, oh, I'm not a morning person. I just, I come alive at night, like a night owl. Well, the reality is that even if it is a little bit of a challenge for you, for a lot of the reasons that we've talked about before, you really need to focus on at least becoming a little bit of a morning person because otherwise it can impact a lot of other areas in your life. And small, consistent changes create lasting results. So again, goes back to, increasing, getting up 15 minutes earlier every day for a week, and then just kind of gradually do that until you're getting up at the time of the morning that you want. And design mornings that feel peaceful, not punishing. So, this can go back to implementing, journaling, prayer, meditation, all those different things in the morning rather than just a rush, rush, rush and, spending all your time stressing out over what's going to happen at your workday. So, a couple of things that resources here that I have that you can learn more and connect with me. You can do a free consult or we can have an evaluation and chat by going to my website, annalaurabrown.com. You can also join my email list at annalaurabrown.com/checklist. And this is where I have a free routine guide to help implement more of the strategies and different routines for having a healthy morning and evening routine. And so I think that is pretty much it. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop the share and the recording, and we'll see if anybody that is here wants to actually ask any questions. So let me see here. Record.
I'm here.